morning, seventh graders. Welcome to our technology class. This is week 25. So we are moving back into typing this week. So your lesson for typing is alpha data entry. And this is the 6th assignment so far in the third quarter. So I know the third quarter is kind of like our longest quarter in the year. So you'll probably end up having the most typing during this quarter, but you did get a little break last week. So hopefully you're able to catch up. And then this week you will finish your lesson. And if you need to catch up, you'll catch up, right? So we're moving into, we're going to be finishing up our internet safety. Probably not this week. We have one lesson and then we're probably going to do one more. And then we're also going to be finishing up our second step. We have 2 more of those lessons. And then at that point, for the fourth quarter, we're moving into coding. And we'll just be ending the school year, pretty much doing all code. So you'll have coding lessons every week. And we'll probably throw in some typing lessons too, but we'll pretty much be focusing more on coding. So it will change a little bit because your assignments will become more coding assignments, right? They won't be the sheets and things where you have to fill them in. It'll actually be where you can do the code, right? And then you have to send me the code. Hang on, sorry. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Let's go into our lesson this week. And our topic for this week is the 4 factors of fair use. And this is really important because everything that creators create it needs to be protected, right? So for example, if you were to type an article on the internet, you wrote your own article, you came up with your own video on YouTube. These things are your intellectual property, your IP, right? There's something that was created by you and they need to be protected by a copyright, which is like a legal protection of if people can use it, how are they allowed to use it? Sometimes IPs have licenses where maybe you have to pay a fee or something to use someone's song in your video, or you know, to talk about whatever it is, use a character from somebody's show that they created in your show or your video. And so you have to realize that you can't just go on the internet and take any video that you want or any you know, article or whatever. Even when you're doing research, right? You can't just go online on Google and Google it up, get a bunch of information, put it in a Word doc and put your name on it. You need to cite your sources, right? Where did you get your information from? And don't just say Google, because that doesn't count. You need to put, you know, the name of the article, the name of the author, the website that it was from, right? And so that way, whoever's looking at it can go back and they can verify that the information is accurate. And it also gives credit to the person who actually wrote it. And so hopefully at this point, you guys, you know how to cite sources, right? You know how to cite them throughout your research doc and then have a works cited page, like a bibliography, where you're able to then actually list all the sources. Oh, excuse me. And that's something that you have to do in college pretty much all the times, even in high school. And I remember in college, we use APA format. So that's how we were like citing things. But I do remember in high school learning about MLA as well. So I know there's different ways that you can go about citing things, and there's whole books that show you how to cite different sources. And nowadays it's so crazy because it's not just the old days where there was just a textbook or encyclopedia or something. Now you guys have like the internet, you have like so many places where you can find sources. And so it's learning how to cite them correctly. So that way you can do the right thing, right? Be a good digital citizen. But fair use is something that we're learning about today. And what rights to fair use do you have as a creator? So we're going to be learning about that. We're going to be defining copyright, public domain, fair use. We'll be learning about how to identify whether something is fair use or not. So we'll be talking about that. So let's watch this video about what is copyright, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about everything.
Whether you're a local artist composing your own music or a massive studio filming the next blockbuster, all creators should understand how copyright, public domain, and fair use affect their work. Although these legal concepts can be somewhat confusing, we're here to break things down into easily understood language. Keep in mind that this video should not be taken as legal advice. Also, we'll be focusing on copyright in the United States. Copyright is the concept that original works, such as writing, photos, or music, belong to the people who create them, and that you cannot use, copy, modify, or publish that work without permission. If you violate copyright, it's called copyright infringement, and you may face steep consequences, such as lawsuits or criminal charges. The vast majority of movies, music, books, photos, and other types of popular media are protected by copyright. Generally, those copyrights last for the lifetime of the creator, plus 70 years after their death. However, the duration of a copyright can vary due to its publication date and ever-changing copyright laws. When a work has no copyright protection, it enters the public domain. Content in the public domain can be used, modified, and published without permission or restriction. This includes all works published prior to 1923, as well as works with expired copyrights. Creators can also place their content in the public domain if they desire. Although you normally need permission to use copyrighted material in your own work, there is an exception called fair use. Fair use allows you to use brief portions of copyrighted works without permission for certain types of use, such as criticism, teaching, or news reporting. However, fair use can get tricky. For instance, you may not be able to claim fair use if you use the copyrighted work for a commercial purpose or take too much of it. When in doubt, always respect the creator's copyright and use as much of your own material as possible to avoid issues. Although copyright, public domain, and fair use can seem like giant, complicated subjects, you should now have a better understanding of the basics.
GCS.
Okay, so let's go over some of these terms, and they'll be in your homework as well, so you might want to jot this down. Copyright. So let's go through the definitions. Copyright is the legal protection that creators have over the things they create. So I always use the example, like when you guys are here in the classroom, I just take out like a book and I open it up to like that first page, and you'll see the copyright information, right? And it usually will say something like, you know, this book cannot be reproduced or distributed without permission of the publisher, blah, blah, blah. Or I also use the example of if you're ever going, like watching a movie, and in the beginning that screen comes on and it says like, this movie may not be copied or used for, you know, resale purposes, fines up to $500,000, and there's like a whole warning, like, you know, police, whatever, like, because like when you think about it, when somebody creates something, right, like a movie, a book, right, a video game, that's somebody's intellectual property. And by somebody going and copying it and selling it or using it, you know, for their gain, they're pretty much stealing someone's work, right? And so it's not right to do that. And, you know, we see a lot of the times, well, not anymore because of COVID, but there'll be people on the street trying to sell like the bootleg movies. I mean, it's just wrong, because when you do something like that, you're the person who created it, they're not getting any of the benefits of creating it. And it's very, very hard as a creator to, make a living. Like, I know all we ever really see are the celebrities, right? The people who are at the top making the millions. But then there's millions of little people who we don't see, the unknowns, who wrote their first book. And we want to be able to support those people by buying their books and buying their seeds. I'm saying CDs. Oh my gosh, that doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, on Spotify, like if you have a Spotify account, like every time you subscribe, that gives that person whatever, percent of money. And so like we have to be respectful of the creators, because like if you created something, I'm sure you wouldn't like it if somebody went and took your work and pretended it was theirs, or they copied it and tried to sell it, right? I'm sure you wouldn't like that. So let's talk about public domain now. So public domain is a little bit different. Well, it's very different. Creative work that's not copyrighted. So it has no copyright and it's free to use without permission. And actually, hang on one sec. I want to pull this up. Let me just pull this up 1 minute. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys something. So this is what we normally do, right? We have a project and we're working on something and we're just Googling around trying to find pictures to put in, videos to add, right? And when we talk about fair use, you'll see that it's okay if it's for like a school project purpose to just, do that. But if you want to take it one step further and make sure that you really are looking for things that are in the public domain, they also call it the Creative Commons. I want to show you guys in the search. So I'm in Google Images. So let's pretend I'm looking for a picture of a cat to include in my project. If you go to settings and you go to advanced search, and you notice here, it says usage rights. If you scroll down, you'll see it says Creative Commons licenses. If you click on that and then do the advanced search, everything that you're getting now is in the Creative Commons. That means that these are pictures that are free to use. There's no copyright or license with them. You can easily copy and paste these into something. So say you had a business, right? And you wanted to, on your website, maybe you had a cat sitting business and you wanted to get a picture of a cat to put on your website. If you take something from the Creative Commons, from public domain, you know that you could use it and nobody is going to sue you, right? But for example, if I don't know how many of you guys know about, let me go back to Google Images. If I tried to go and, has everybody heard of Grumpy Cat? Do you know Grumpy Cat? If I tried to take a picture of Grumpy Cat and use it on my website, now Grumpy Cat is actually copyrighted because, why? Because they have like a YouTube channel, they have calendars, they have everything, right? So if I were to take a picture and use that on my cat sitting website, I wouldn't be allowed to do that unless I contacted Grumpy Cat and said, hey, can I license out a picture of your cat to use on my website, right? So because why? Because my website is being used to generate money for me and my business. And so I can't go ahead and use images from somebody else's business that's been generating them income and use it for my gain, because that's their brand, right? So hopefully it's making sense. Like, you can't use somebody else's brand name that's copyrighted for your gain as a business or for whatever it is that you're trying to do with it. Now, we will talk about fair use and like when there are times. So fair use is the ability to use copyrighted work without permission, but only in certain ways and specific situations. So that's what we're going to learn about. So to determine if it's fair use, there's 4 things we have to look at in this square. We have to look at the purpose, the nature, the effect, and the amount of what you're using. And so we'll go through some examples to help you guys understand this better, but this is probably what you want to start jotting down, because this is going to be part of your assignment. So when we're looking at the amount, The amount of whatever's being used, again, it could be a video, a part of a book or something, I don't know, whatever it is that you're trying to use. The amount used is only a small portion of the original work or does not include the heart of the work, right? So if that's what you're using, that could be fair use, but it has to also meet the other three criteria. The purpose of the new work is educational, or the original work is transformed into something very different. So again, what is the purpose behind what you're doing? The nature of the original work is nonfiction or based on fact rather than creative or fictional. So that, again, that might be considered fair use then. And the effect of the new work, so whatever you're using this to then create something new, does not include any negative impact on the creator or the value of the original work, thinking money, right? That you're not trying to use it to make money. So some common examples that you're going to be filling in the middle of your box, because this will be your assignment. Schoolwork and education. So again, you're doing a project. Fair use would come into play if you were using a small amount of something. You were incorporating it into really what your thought and your creation. And then it was for the purposes of education. That would be okay for schoolwork. Criticizing or commenting. So you're doing like a critique or something. News reporting. So we see this a lot with news reporting. Comedy. A lot of the times people, if you watch any like comedians and things, they sometimes take work and they use it in there, but they're using a little bit of it and it's changed a bit. And it doesn't really negatively impact the creator, and it's not used, to harm them, right? To harm their business and their brand. So it can be, I mean, there's lawyers who their full job is copyright and fair use. And this is, I mean, they're experts at it. And every like type of entertainment and like industry and things it has a lot of different things with copyright and fair use. So it can be specific to different areas, but for you as like a consumer, for you as a student, the main thing is to know that you should always cite, right? You should always give credit to the creator. And even if you use a little bit of it, you should just still give credit. That's always just because you want to get used to the right practices because you're preparing yourself for college, right? And that they're going to ask you to cite. Like you'll never be able to turn the paper in that doesn't have sources that are cited. I mean, they won't accept it. And we know about plagiarism, right? Which is basically just copying someone else's work and pretending it's our own. And this is why we learn about these things. And copyright is like, if you go and you use a copyrighted thing, I mean, that's like worse than plagiarism. You can be totally fined for that. I mean, there's legal implications for that. And so it becomes serious, right? And so that's why when you think about it, school is preparing you for the real world. Yes, you're learning all these things, but really behind learning all these things is learning the real skills that you need to be able to go into the real world and be successful, right? So you can't in the real world start a business and copy the brand name of another business and use all of their logos and use their slogans. That would be, I mean, it'd be illegal, right? So hopefully this is like opening your eyes that there's a whole world out there and, there's creators and there's legal protections called copyrights. And there's something called fair use where you can use it to a certain extent. But again, it has to meet all of these 4 criteria. And you should always, always cite your sources, right? And give credit to the creator. So let's take a look at some examples and we'll think if we think it is fair use or not. So example number 1, Maya is making a flyer for her pet sitting business to post on her social media account. She finds a cool pet store logo and uses part of it in the flyer. So let's think about it. Let's go back to our little square here. It says she uses part of a pet store logo. I don't know. That's a red flag right there because they already have their brand and their logo. So why is she using that for her business, right? Her purpose is not really educational because she's using it for her own business. The nature of it, again, is really for her, and the effect is that it could negatively impact the other people, because what if like something happens with her business and then they think that her business is connected to the other business, if like a client thinks that, right? A customer thinks that, and she's making money using their logo. So I would probably lean towards like, this is not fair use. She probably should find a different image to use on her website. Example number 2. A group of students are making a video for their class, remembering all they've done throughout the year. They use the song Good Riddance, Time of Your Life by Green Day in the background. So they're making a video and it looks like it's for the purposes of school. So the purpose is educational. So we're like, okay, they're using the song. The nature of the original work, it is creative. Obviously, they're using the song. But the effect, it doesn't really have any negative impact, and it's not like they're making money or anything. So this would probably be fair use because, again, it's the purpose behind it, right? They're using it for school. It's not like they're trying to make money or anything. It would be okay. Example number 3. Eva takes an image of a famous magazine cover of a celebrity model, but she changes the headlines on the cover. She does this to criticize how magazines pressure girls to look perfect. So she's using it to criticize. So let's go back to our square there. And let's try and think about each of these things. So we know that she's using it for criticizing or commenting. She is changing it, right? And she is using portions of it. So it seems like this is likely fair use because of the purpose behind it and that it's not really having any negative effect. She's not using it to make money, right? So we could probably say that one's fair use. Darren uses Photoshop to create a new version of the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. He uses this image on his website where he sells other photos he's created. So this one can be a little bit tricky, right? So we think back to here, again, purpose, it's not educational. It is a creative work, the nature of it. He's using it on his website to gain clients and make money. And even though he did change it, it still does use the heart of the picture. So this probably wouldn't be fair use. He probably should shy away maybe and try to think of another idea. And I know that sometimes it can be hard to be creative, like especially in these cases, like he wants to sell photos and things, you want to be catchy, but you really have to try to come up with original creations. That's always the best way. Trying to use somebody else's thing that, their thing was popular, it usually can become, dangerous because you could be violating copyright, right? And so you don't want to put yourself in that kind of a position. So it's always better safe than sorry, right? With these cases, and you want to keep yourself safe. So sampling is reworking a portion of a song or sound recording into a new composition. And this is the last example, which I was a little bit hesitant to share, but I'm sure all of you guys, these are like the most popular songs of 2020, and they made, so the example is that the mashup was created by this DJ Earworm, and he does not sell the mashups, but he performs them as a DJ. So what you're supposed to do is watch the video and consider the 4 factors of fair use, and then you're supposed to answer the questions. So I'll put the video on, and then I'll let you guys watch it. So again, just use your judgment here. You know, like we don't live in a bubble, but and we know that there's a world out there and this is what they do, right? So but for the example purposes and that it is in the lesson, I'll put the video on. Okay, so let's watch the video. So I want you to start thinking about, as you're watching it, thinking about these questions that are here. How will the mashup be used? Did it transform the original works into something very different? Are the original works creative or based on fact? How will the mashup affect the original creators? Will it affect their reputation? Did the money they make? Does it only use a small portion of the original work? Does it use the heart of the works? So think about that as you're watching the video. Okay, so I'll put it on.
I should have stayed at home on a summer evening. Don't you agree? It's coming down on me. Oh no, that summer feeling. Don't you agree? And it sounds just like a song. That summer feeling. Here in my summer feeling. Like I have never heard before. Like this time I know for sure. Like not the only one that feels it all.
Wanna spend this holiday locked in.
How you like that? Don't show up. Don't show up. In this big world. Don't come out. Don't come out. It's a mad world. Walk away. Walk away. I'm a sad girl. You know how. You know how. It's a mad world. And it sounds just like a song. That summer feeling. Here in my summer feeling. Like I have never heard before. Like this time I know for sure. Like not the only one that feels it all. I should have stayed at home on a summer evening. Up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane. Falling down on me. Oh no, that summer feeling. Don't you agree? And it sounds just like a song. That summer feeling. Here in my summer feeling. We're on a panic.
Cause I got this feeling.
Going down from the ceiling.
Cause I can't believe it.
It's too hard to believe it.
Like I started dreaming.
Maybe I'm just dreaming.
Rain on me.
Now I'm falling.
Okay, so let's take a look at this. That was a clip. So imagine, so that's like a mashup of the most popular songs from summer 2020 video, the music videos and that, and he's adding in, mashing them up. So let's try and think about if this would be fair use or not. So the amount of what he uses, he does use just a small amount of each song, but he relies on certain samples over and over again for the song's composition, right? He's kind of like repeating it. For the purpose, he relies on certain samples over and over, which define the song's composition, but he's turned them into a completely new song. Even though he's not selling the song, it's made him popular, plus he gets paid to DJ. So we're thinking about that. The nature, he uses creative work rather than nonfiction, so that makes it less likely candidate for fair use, right? And then the effect, he's giving the artist increased exposure, which might lead them to making more money. However, he doesn't credit them at the end. So as a form of a collage, it really could qualify for fair use. Also, he's been making these mashups for many years, and it doesn't appear he's faced any legal challenges. The lack of credit given to the original artist, however, could raise copyright issues. So it seems like it likely could be fair use, but again, there's some iffy things, and it's always, always better to give credit to the creators. Like in this case, it would be the artists, the music artists, right? Who songs these are, because they're the ones who came up with the songs. So giving them credit. And so it was kind of more like a collage, mashing together music videos and songs and things to make his mashup, right? That is going to make him popular. So hopefully this is helping you to understand that you cannot just go out there. And I know a lot of you YouTuber people who like have your own YouTube channel and you think you want to do something similar where you want to use someone's video. Be careful. It's happened to me. I had to switch the chapels over to Vimeo. And I mean, I believe I'm using it for fair use, but I'll use some of the worship videos and YouTube will flag the video as a copyright infringement, maybe because they think that I'm like going to make money off of it or something. And it's like, if they only knew I'm using it for the chapel. So it's education purposes. But again, they're very strict with YouTube. They will flag your videos and block them if they think that it could be a copyright infringement. Like if they think that you're using it on your YouTube channel to make money, but they don't realize that the YouTube channel is educational purposes, right? So if I wanted to really try, I could try to go in there, but I just figured whatever, it's not a big deal. So I just use a different site to share privately the video. But again, it does happen because I've seen it happen. So you do have to be careful with what you're taking because it's somebody else's creation, somebody else's work, and you can't just put it on and pretend it's yours, right? And pretend that that was something that you made. What else did I want to say? Oh, so everybody's going to get one of these sheets. So you'll type in, we pretty much went through all the answers together in the video. So you can just go through and fill them in. And then there's a quiz that goes along with it with 4 questions, multiple choice. So take the quiz and do your typing. And that's a wrap. So I'll see you guys next time. All right. Bye, guys.